So I wanted to do two main things. One is to talk a little bit about my context for the past, and then, of course, the focus for the future. Because I see myself as somewhere in the middle. What did you say? The middle gears or something. Because I first came to CPACs in 1994 when I moved to Sydney, and Stuart said, come and you have to be involved, because we'd already met when I was working at the Peace Research Centre at ANU, and we had the first network, it's Australasian network of peace study centres, and that network doesn't really need to exist anymore, as Frank channeled a bit of what I was going to say, which was very helpful in relation to, and Keith as well, in terms of the peace study centres that no longer exist but have left a legacy, of course, and the continuing existence of a centre for peace studies at University of New England, but that one doesn't really provide a locus, and that's to build on what Meredith was saying about the value of Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies from the very beginning, even when it was in the dungeon in the Mills building, was still providing a locus, and of course it does so much more now. That's a phrase that I think I borrowed from John Paul Lederach, a locus as well as a focus. Yeah, that we not only have a focus, we have a place to do this. So I now have forgotten what I was going to say, just a minute. So the other thing that Stuart highlighted was the focus very much at the beginning, and I think that came through in social justice issues domestically in Australia. And one of the things that I think that there were obviously concerns about international issues, as Peter was also talking about. Nuclear deterrence and stopping the end of the world is very much an international issue. But one of the things that I came to with CPACs, and I guess I thank Stuart, or you can blame Stuart, whichever you like, when he trusted me to take over the Key Issues unit from Mary Lane. I first gave a guest lecture in Peace and Conflict Studies when Mary was teaching the unit, to take over that, and then as somebody mentioned earlier, I became the first a full-time academic at the centre. And from that, one of the things that I think I brought to some extent was more of an emphasis on conflict resolution, which was always there, but more of an emphasis on conflict resolution, conflict transformation, and an international focus to that, but still maintaining the connection, the cosmopolitan connection between the focus on understanding how conflict is resolved peacefully or constructively and understanding what are the causes from a psychological point of view at all levels. Yeah, I again extend on Stuart's statement from the bedroom to the boardroom, and I added the United Nations Security Council. Yeah, so the idea that these understanding what causes violence, what causes conflict to be resolved destructively, and how can we understand the psychology, the social psychology of the context that can support a peaceful conflict transformation. And that's been my main focus in my research, is looking at reconciliation, conflict transformation, justice, and peace building, as Ken mentioned. And one of the things that, that's always been a struggle with that has been, and it is a struggle, and again, what Keith was saying about peace as being seen, and others were saying about peace as a respectable word or a respectable concept, and very much in the first 10 years the first 5 years before Jake came on as director, it was particularly difficult. It was sort of like we're teaching peace and conflict studies and being heard as being something legitimate, and it still is to some extent. But I think I just came back from the International Studies Association conference in New Orleans in the US, and this, I think, is a really strong indicator of peace becoming a respectable thing. Now, for those of you who don't know, the International Studies Association is the largest, most respected international conference gathering for international relations scholars who do not have a normative agenda that's explicit. They have concealed normative agendas. That august association, next year's conference, they have an annual convention every year, the one for 2016, the theme is peace, not conflict. The fact that they've chosen the theme to be peace is really, I think, very significant. I wasn't going to go next year, but now I think I have to go. So I think that's a really good indicator of that. The other quick thing I wanted to mention was I want to mention, how much time do I have? Mr. Timekeeper. 4, okay. So a very quick mention of my diagnosis of the reason for CPAC's survival and thriving in a lot of ways. And it reflects what we've heard, bottom-up, grassroots, beginning with staff interacting with students. It was coming from young people, it was coming from students, it was coming from a commitment, a belief, a determination in something to achieve something there. So, and that bottom-up grassroots commitment and I think I just said before, bloody-minded determination that has continued in terms of the way that the staff, students and everybody, sorry, words are not coming very clearly. There is a culture of volunteerism that supports the paid staff context, which can be tricky to, manage. At the same time as that, I think it's the secret to, what has enabled CPACs to continue as a locus and a focus that has an academic program as well as a highly active advocacy and community involvement program. So that bottom-upness, what was I going to say? The community, so there's 4 things actually, not 3, there's 4. The grassroots bottom-up, the community that it creates, the independence from external funding. So we're going to continue regardless of whether there's external funding or not, because we started that way without it and we continue that way without it as an overall, the seed funding has come from human resources rather than financial resources. And the last one that came to me while listening was the variety. So the variety of perspectives and how we've handled differences and how we handle conflict within the centre in terms of working out the priorities and how we're going to do things. So the last thing I wanted to mention was in terms of the future, which of course I'm what I'm supposed to be talking about, but hopefully what I'm talking about is creating that sense anyway, is about how we learn from the past, but at the same time as that maintaining our original, our unique and independent model of a centre and at the same time as that developing the linkages internationally in particular, because that's where our major partners are, The Department for Peace Studies, the Centre for Peace Studies at Bradford University became the Department for Peace Studies at Bradford University and just celebrated last year its 40th anniversary. The Centre for International Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason University in Virginia, the first one to teach conflict resolution in a postgraduate academic course, became the Institute for Conflict Analysis and Resolution 30-odd years ago, and then became the school. I'm repeating, School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution. That's unique. That's their pen. I picked it up the other week when I was there giving a little talk. So, there are partners out there who have, and both of those stories were not given, they weren't inevitable, Both Bradford and ICAR, the Conflict Analysis and Resolution, had to fight for that. They didn't get there just because everybody thought, peace and conflict studies, wonderful idea, okay? They had to fight for it. And the final line in an article I was just reading at the time when the Institute for Conflict Analysis and Resolution became the school in 2011, the last line of that was that we continue the struggle. So again, I thought that sounded something to sort of building that solidarity. And finally, but this is very important, students who are notable by their absence at this event, young people who are also absent, notable by that. I did a little poll before. I think the youngest person in this room is 30. If there's anybody younger, please raise your hands. Yeah, right, okay. So I do think that my vision for the future for CPACs is that we develop our policies and priorities in a consultative, dialogue starting with our students and our alumni. If you look at this is where it is. This is what we do. It's practice, yes? It's what we produce as a centre in terms of students who go out there in the world and what are they doing. We have a huge multiplier effect. It's not just this tiny little academic staff and everything else. We do a huge amount within the university. We punch way above our weight. But as students, our alumni, what we do, that in terms of building peace with justice in their work and in their lives, that's where we can make the biggest difference. And I want to make sure that we continue that. Thanks.